There isn't even 1 inch of Iraq's land under the control of Daesh, but there are sleeper cells here and there.
Daesh has killed more than 24 members of a pro-government Shia militia in northern Iraq, quashing any hope that the terrorist group has been fully defeated. Fighting broke out in the town of Hawija, which Daesh controlled until last October. 27 members of the popular mobilization units were killed. It happened just after international donors pledged $30 billion to help the country rebuild after its 4-year battle with Daesh. Well, to get more on this, we're joined now by Douglas Ollivant. He was a top advisor for U.S. Presidents Barack Obama and George W. Bush, serving as the director of Iraq for the National Security Council. Doug, good to have you on the Newsmakers.
Always a pleasure.
So, people look at Iraq and think Daesh is gone, ISIS has been defeated, and then we see attacks such as the one we saw in Hawija and other attacks on civilians, and we go, whoa, hold on, maybe not so fast. Is that where we're at? Are we underestimating their ability to regroup?
Well, everyone is always caveated. When you say Daesh is defeated as an organized military force, there's usually a caveat. We've moved into a new phase. Yes, we've just had this attack by Daesh against the Shia PMUs around Kirkuk, but this doesn't sound like what we've seen the last 3 years. This sounds like what we saw 10 years ago. This could have happened in 2005 or 2006. So we are back to the phase where Daesh is a ordinary, more or less, terrorist group. And while that isn't perfect, that's a much better place to be than what we've seen over the last 3 years, where they held territory and could commit atrocities en masse because they held territory.
Okay, so they're not building a country or a caliphate anymore. But we saw a double suicide bombing in January. Are we going to see perhaps a repeat of the worst of the sectarian-oriented terrorism that we saw a few years ago, where they might blow up the Shia, they might blow up a mosque on Friday Jummah prayers and stuff like that? Is it going to possibly get ugly because they don't have a place to stay and they're just going to use asymmetric tactics?
It depends on how effectively Baghdad pivots to address this new threat. If they are capable of moving to a intelligence-based force, if they retool the Golden Division to do its original mission of digging out these terrorist cells and finding and killing them before they can attack, then they'll do well. If they don't pivot, then Daesh will have the ability to regenerate.
What do you make of Trump's policy in Iraq right now, vis-a-vis defeating Daesh, but also just helping the Iraqis rebuild?
I think the Iraqis are getting what they need from the Americans. We, quite obviously did not contribute money at the Kuwait conference. We did give some export guarantees, but we are very committed to the military and police training mission in Baghdad. So you will continue to see, for as long as Iraq requests them, U.S. trainers training the Iraqi military, the Iraqi police forces, their entire defense and security establishment.
Is that the right policy, saying no nation building from us? We'll introduce you to our business partners, but we're not going to give you aid?
I think it's working. The Iraqis got what they needed. They have loan guarantees from the neighbors, most notably Turkey, who really did step up at the Kuwait conference. They have now essentially the line of credit that they need to begin their reconstruction of the infrastructure, to move forward on that, to jumpstart their economy. So the initial signs are good. We'll have to see how it plays out, of course.
I spoke to former Iraqi Prime Minister Iyad Allawi not too long ago, and he basically said his country is a client state of Iran right now. So let me ask you a big picture question here. As the US extricates itself from Iraq, tries to sort of not get too involved, as you guys have defeated Daesh, that's good. I wish you all the best. You can rebuild your country. At best, Iraq is a strong ally of Iran. At worst, it's a client state of Iran. After all these years, after everything, that must sting for Washington.
I think Washington would lean to the former interpretation. Yes, it's a strong ally of Iran, but that's been because the neighbors, for the most part, again, Turkey being the notable exception, have not been really involved inside Iraq, most notably the Saudis. That's really changed over the last year. We're seeing a new détente between Baghdad and Riyadh, and I think the United States really plans to work through its regional allies. The United States can only do so much in Iraq. One Iraqi told me, kind of quipped, you know, the United States does okay in Iraq for a country that's 3,000 miles away.
Right.
So we really do need to rely on the neighbors and work through the neighbors we have good relationships with.
As somebody who deals with the Iraqis on a daily basis, as an American, as somebody who was within the system, in the White House, in the Pentagon, and so on, in general, what do the Iraqis want from you?
I think the Iraqis want us not to stop paying attention. They want the diplomatic support. When you talk to the Iraqis, they want the full implementation of our strategic framework agreement. Not just the military piece, but the culture, the economic, the educational, a full relationship with the United States that's more than the one-dimensional security relationship we've had over the past decade.
And as we circle back to Daesh, and we worry about it reconstituting itself as a military force and so on, we know that after Al-Qaeda came Daesh. It had the same sort of roots, but it was a different organization. Can we say that the Iraqi government is doing all it can to ensure that Daesh or something similar doesn't re-emerge?
I think they're making, you can always do more, but they are making good steps. The politics in Baghdad now is very, very different. We're starting to see cross-sectarian lists. There will be running on Prime Minister Abadi's list Sunni candidates in Anbar and in Nineveh. There will be Kurds running on his list. We're seeing a very new dimension to the politics. People who are outside the politics, figures like Harith al-Dari, are now inside the system, working inside the political system, not outside funding insurgents. Things are changing. Now, whether that's good enough to prevent the resurgence of a Daesh or the Daesh 2.0 we all hear about, we'll just have to wait and see.
So, okay, clearly it's not the same as it was under Nouri al-Maliki, where it was almost like the politics of the victors, right? And Sunnis felt disenfranchised. Do you feel it's enough and it's being done fast enough, especially in the atmosphere of Daesh widows being executed and so on? There still seems to be a bitter taste in the mouths of many Sunnis. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but you get a flavor of it when you read about what the refugees are saying, people who have been kicked out of their homes or had their family members killed by Hashd-e-Chabi and that sort of thing. So do you feel it's happening fast enough?
It's never fast enough. But things are more complicated. When you read about the Daesh widows being executed, that's usually by other Sunnis in tribal disputes. So it's much, much more complicated.
Oh, no, I mean Daesh widows like being tried, sort of.
Being tried and executed. Yes, that's the case. But the reintegration of Daesh families is usually intertribal.
It's complicated.
It's very complicated.
But are you optimistic?
Cautiously.
Cautiously optimistic. Douglas Ollivant, thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers.
Always a pleasure.